What would you do if saving a life meant losing everything you fought for? Imagine risking it all. Your job, your family's future, your dreams, for a stranger who the world had already forgotten. This is the story of a young nurse who defied a system built to crush her. A homeless man with a secret that would change everything, in a battle that exposed the ugly truth behind a prestigious hospital's gleaming facade. Tonight, you're about to witness a story of courage, betrayal, and an unexpected twist that will leave you speechless. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below and let us know, would you risk it all for what's right? Stick around, because this story will grip your heart and refuse to let go. The fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital buzzed like a swarm of restless insects, casting a cold, unforgiving glow over the sterile corridors. It was 12:37 a.m., and Anita Johnson, a 24-year-old nurse with rich mahogany skin and eyes that held both fire and fatigue, trudged through her 16th hour on shift. Her navy scrubs clung to her frame, damp with sweat, and a few braided strands had slipped free, framing her weary face. Her clipboard, edges frayed from overuse, felt like an anchor in her hands. Every step echoed with the weight of exhaustion, not just physical, but the kind that sank into your soul. Anita was no stranger to struggle. Raised in a cramped apartment in a forgotten corner of the city, she'd clawed her way through nursing school on scholarships and late-night diner shifts, driven by a promise to her late father, to heal, to serve, to make a difference. But Mercy General was a battlefield, not a sanctuary. Behind its polished reputation lay a system that favored the wealthy and turned a blind eye to the marginalized. Anita saw it daily. The dismissive glances from white colleagues, the way patients of color waited hours while others were whisked to private rooms. She'd learned to swallow the bitterness, to focus on her patients, but each shift chipped away at her hope. Her mother, Esther, lay in a hospital bed across town, her lungs weakened by years of factory work. Medical bills piled up like a storm cloud over Anita's life, threatening to drown her. Rent was overdue, and the fridge in their tiny apartment was nearly empty. Nursing was her lifeline, the fragile thread holding her family together. Losing it would mean losing everything. As Anita rounded the corner, a faint moan pierced the silence, sharp and desperate. Her heart lurched. Someone was in trouble, but what she was about to discover would force her to make a choice that could shatter her world. Anita's pulse quickened as she sprinted toward the hospital's glass entrance. There, slumped against the automatic doors, was an elderly man, his face pale as death. His silver hair was matted, his tattered coat reeked of days on the streets, and his breaths came in shallow, ragged gasps. He clutched his chest, eyes fluttering, lips trembling with a barely audible, "Help, please." Anita knelt beside him, her training kicking in. She checked his pulse, weak, erratic. His insurance card, creased and worn, lay beside a battered wallet. Samuel Grant, it read. Her stomach twisted. Another soul the system would likely discard. "Stay with me, Mr. Grant," she whispered, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. She glanced up to see Carla, the night receptionist, approaching with a scowl. Carla's perfume stung Anita's nose, and her eyes flicked to the insurance card with cold indifference. "His coverage is suspended," Carla snapped, her voice like a blade. "Hospital policy, Anita. No admit without active insurance. You know the rules." Anita's blood boiled. She'd seen this before. Wealthy patients ushered in without question, while people like Samuel were left to languish. The memory of her father, denied timely care years ago, flashed before her eyes. His frail hand in hers, his final breath stolen by a system that deemed him unworthy. She wouldn't let it happen again. But defiance came with a price. Her job was her only income, her mother's only hope. Breaking protocol could cost her everything. Fear clawed at her, whispering of eviction, hunger, and a future in ruins. Yet, as Samuel's eyes met hers, pleading and fading, a fire ignited within her, a resolve stronger than any fear. "I'm taking him in," Anita said, her voice low but unyielding. Carla's eyes widened. "You'll regret this, Anita. You're throwing your career away." Anita's heart pounded as she lifted Samuel, his frail body heavy against her exhausted frame. Every step toward the ER was a step toward ruin or redemption. She didn't know which, but she knew one thing. She couldn't turn back. The ER was a blur of chaos and urgency. Anita's voice cut through the noise as she called for Dr. Patel, the on-call physician. Suspected cardiac event. Main entrance. Insurance suspended, but he needs care now. Dr. Patel, a wiry man with kind but tired eyes, didn't hesitate. Medical ethics and EMTALA are clear. Stabilize first, paperwork later. Get him in. Anita worked alongside the team, her hands steady as she hooked up an ECG and administered fluids. Samuel's vitals flickered on the monitor, each beep a fragile thread tethering him to life. Sweat dripped down her brow, but she didn't falter. She couldn't, not when a man's life hung in the balance. As Samuel stabilized, Anita caught Carla's glare from the hallway. The receptionist's lips curled into a smirk, and Anita knew what was coming. She'd crossed a line, and the hospital's director, Edward Vaughn, would make her pay. The next morning, Anita stepped into Mercy General, her heart heavy with dread. She hadn't slept, haunted by the weight of her choice. But nothing could prepare her for the public humiliation waiting just beyond those doors, a moment that would strip her of everything she'd fought for. The hospital lobby buzzed with morning activity, but the air turned thick as Anita entered. Nurses whispered, their eyes darting toward her. She felt like prey in a lion's den. Edward Vaughn, the hospital director, stood waiting, his tailored suit and icy blue eyes radiating authority. His face was a mask of contempt, his lips a thin line. "Miss Johnson," he began, his voice loud enough to draw every eye in the room. "Your reckless disregard for hospital policy last night is unacceptable. You've embarrassed Mercy General and undermined our standards." Anita's heart sank. This wasn't a private reprimand. It was a spectacle. Vaughn wanted to make an example of her. "You're terminated, effective immediately," he declared, his words dripping with disdain. "Mercy General is a beacon of excellence, and we have no place for those who can't respect order, especially not someone like you." The implication hung heavy in the air. Anita felt the sting of his words, the weight of every stare. Someone like you, a black nurse, daring to challenge a system built to keep her in her place. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Astra's troublemaker, ungrateful, doesn't belong. Astra's Carla stood nearby, her smirk triumphant. Anita's vision blurred with unshed tears, but she straightened her spine, refusing to break. She wouldn't give on the satisfaction. Marcus, a black security guard with kind eyes, escorted her out, his touch gentle but heavy with shared sorrow. As the hospital doors closed behind her, the sound echoed like a tomb sealing shut. Back in her dim, cramped apartment, Anita collapsed on her bed, the weight of her sacrifice crushing her. The bills on the table, her mother's cough in the next room, the empty fridge, it all screamed failure. Had she made the right choice, or had she doomed her family for a stranger? Days bled into weeks, each one darker than the last. Anita's savings dwindled, and every job application hit a wall the moment Mercy General was mentioned. Her mother's health worsened, and the fear of eviction loomed like a guillotine. Yet, even in her despair, Anita couldn't regret saving Samuel. His fading eyes haunted her, a reminder of why she'd fought. One gray afternoon, as Anita sat staring at the cracked walls of her apartment, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. She hesitated, then answered. "Anita? It's Samuel Grant." Her breath caught. He was alive. "I owe you my life," Samuel said, his voice hoarse but strong. "I know what you lost because of me. I can't let that stand. Meet me tomorrow at Daniel Carter's law office. We're going to make this right." Anita's heart raced. Was this a lifeline or a trap? She'd already lost everything. Could she trust a stranger whose life she'd saved? As Anita hung up, a spark of hope flickered in her chest, but so did a chilling fear. Samuel wasn't just a homeless man. He was hiding something, and whatever it was could pull her into a battle far bigger than she'd ever imagined. The law office of Daniel Carter was a world apart from Anita's reality. Marble floors gleamed, and the air smelled of polished wood and coffee. Samuel sat in a conference room, his frail frame now dressed in a clean suit, his eyes sharp with purpose. Beside him was Daniel, a lawyer with a commanding presence and a warm smile that put Anita at ease. "Anita, you saved my life," Samuel said, his voice thick with gratitude. "But there's more to my story than you know." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "I wasn't always a man on the streets. I was a corporate attorney, a power player in New York, with connections that reached the highest offices. A scandal and a health crisis stripped me of everything, my wealth, my family, my name. But I still have my mind, and I still have friends who owe me favors." Anita's jaw dropped. The man she'd saved wasn't just a victim. He was a warrior with a past, ready to fight. Daniel slid a folder across the table. "We've been digging into Mercy General, Anita. Your case isn't isolated. There's a pattern: discrimination, negligence, cover-ups. We're building a case, and we need you." Samuel's next words hit like a thunderbolt. Edward Vaughn wasn't just enforcing policy that night. He's been skimming funds from the hospital's charity program, denying care to patients like me to pad his own pockets. "I have proof, documents I kept from my old life. But we need your voice to bring it to light." Anita's mind reeled. The director she defied wasn't just prejudiced. He was corrupt. Her fight wasn't just about saving one man. It was about dismantling a rotten empire. As Anita agreed to join their fight, a chilling realization hit her. Exposing Vaughn would make her target. And in the shadows, someone was already watching her every move. Daniel's office became a war room. Anita, Samuel, and Daniel pored over documents, uncovering a trail of falsified records and silenced complaints. Samuel's old connections proved invaluable. He reached out to investigative journalists, former colleagues, and even a whistleblower within Mercy General. Anita found herself at the heart of a growing resistance. Former patients denied care because of race or poverty share their stories. A janitor, terrified but brave, slipped her a USB drive with recordings of Vaughn's private meetings. The evidence was damning but dangerous. One night, Anita met a young mother, Lila, whose son had died after being turned away from Mercy General. Lila's tears mirrored Anita's own pain, reigniting the memory of her father's death. "You're giving us a voice," Lila whispered, gripping Anita's hand. In that moment, Anita knew this fight was bigger than herself. It was for every soul the system had crushed. But the pressure was relentless. Anita's apartment was broken into, her belongings trashed. Anonymous calls warned her to back off. Her mother's medical records were leaked online, twisted to paint Anita as desperate and unstable. Each blow tested her resolve, but Samuel's quiet strength and Daniel's sharp mind kept her grounded. Just when they thought they had enough to go public, a bombshell dropped. Vaughn had hired a private investigator to dig into Anita's past. What he'd uncovered could destroy her credibility and her spirit before the fight even reached the courtroom. Anita refused to be silenced. With Samuel's guidance, she recorded secret interviews with victims of Mercy General's negligence, using her phone and a small fund from Samuel's remaining savings. The footage was raw, patients in tears, employees whispering in shadows, all exposing the hospital's dark underbelly. One night, heart-pounding, Anita uploaded the video to a small YouTube channel Daniel had set up. "This is it," she whispered, her finger hovering over the button. Samuel and Daniel stood beside her, their faces tense but resolute. "It's time," Samuel said. "Let the world see." The video exploded online. Hashtags like #JusticeForAnita and #MercyExposed trended within hours. Protests erupted outside Mercy General, with signs demanding accountability. Social media buzzed with support, calling Anita a hero. But the backlash was swift. Vaughn launched a smear campaign, painting Anita as a disgruntled employee seeking fame. He held a press conference, his voice dripping with arrogance. Mercy General is a pillar of this community. These accusations are baseless, driven by a bitter former nurse and a delusional old man. As Anita watched the news, a comment on her video caught her eye. An anonymous user claiming to be a Mercy General nurse, ready to testify. The twist. It was Carla, the receptionist who betrayed her. Guilt had eaten at Carla, and now she wanted to make amends. Could Anita trust the woman who'd helped destroy her? As Anita debated reaching out to Carla, a chilling message arrived on her phone. Stop now, or your mother pays the price. The war was escalating, and Anita was running out of time. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, packed with reporters, activists, and curious onlookers. Anita sat at the plaintiff's table, her heart racing. The class action lawsuit against Mercy General and Vaughn was underway, and she was the face of it. Vaughn's legal team was ruthless, twisting her actions as reckless and her motives as selfish. They dragged her mother's illness into the spotlight, implying Anita was desperate for money. Each attack felt like a knife, but Anita stood tall. When she took the stand, her voice trembled but grew stronger with every word. She spoke of her father's death, of Samuel's near-fatal collapse, of a system that valued profit over lives. The courtroom hung on her every word, some jurors wiping tears. Samuel testified next, his past as a powerful attorney lending weight to his words. He revealed Vaughn's embezzlement, backed by documents that left the defense scrambling. Then came Carla, her voice shaking as she admitted her role in Anita's firing and exposed Vaughn's orders to prioritize wealthy patients. As Carla spoke, Anita's heart twisted. The woman who betrayed her was now risking everything to tell the truth. In that moment, Anita saw redemption, not just for herself, but for others who'd been complicit in the system's wrongs. The judge's gavel fell. Mercy General and Edward Vaughn are found guilty of discrimination, negligence, and financial misconduct. The hospital will compensate all affected patients and reinstate Anita Johnson with full back pay. Cheers erupted. Anita's tears fell freely, not of pain, but of triumph. She embraced Samuel and Daniel, their bond forged in fire. Vaughn's empire had crumbled, and justice had prevailed. But as Anita left the courtroom, a shadowy figure watched from the crowd. Vaughn's defeat wasn't the end. Someone else was pulling strings, and they weren't done with her yet. Vaughn resigned in disgrace, his legacy in tatters. Mercy General underwent a massive overhaul, with new leadership vowing reform. Anita returned to her nursing job, but she was no longer just a nurse. She was a symbol of change, admired by some, feared by others. With her compensation, Anita ensured her mother received top-tier care, watching her smile return for the first time in years. She poured the rest into a new nonprofit, the Equity in Care Fund, co-founded with Samuel to support victims of healthcare discrimination. Samuel, reinvigorated, became her mentor, sharing his wisdom and connections. Daniel continued fighting similar cases, with Anita as his fiercest ally. Their bond grew into a family, forged by shared purpose. One day, Anita received a letter from Carla, now working at a small clinic. "I was wrong about you," it read. "You showed me what courage looks like. I'm trying to make things right." Enclosed was a donation to the Equity in Care Fund, Carla's first step toward redemption. Anita smiled, realizing that change wasn't just in systems, but in hearts. This is more than a story. It's a call to action. Anita's courage reminds us that one voice can spark a revolution. What will you stand for? Hit that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe to join our community of truth seekers and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced injustice? Let's keep this fight alive together.